let's talk about some systems and tools. So number one is clues. Everyone in the organization has a clue, what we call a colleague letter of understanding. They're maintained in a software system that Ron here developed a couple of years ago. And the clue includes the following key elements. Number one, your personal commercial mission. When you come into Morningstar, you're taking on the mantle of some mission that is unique to you. And this mission is intended to be your primary guide for everything you do. And I kind of look at it personally as I gut check what I'm doing on a pretty regular basis with my mission. My mission is to develop and refine superior systems and principles of organizing people and to inculcate those principles and systems in the minds of our colleagues. So I gut check what I'm doing against that mission all the time. That's supposed to be my guide. That's my boss. In addition to the clue are your key activities and responsibilities. So it's fine that you've got this mission, but that's a couple of sentences. How are you going to achieve that? Outline it. And these are self-developed, by the way. Subset of that are your stepping stones, which we'll talk about in a second. And then you also have your personal development plan. You remember the principal said that each colleague is responsible for their own development. So this is where I'm going to sit down and say, okay, how am I going to achieve the things that I need to achieve from a developmental standpoint? What are my personal short-term and long-term goals? And your clue colleagues are responsible for acknowledging your clue. Almost kind of like if you think about this as a network of contracts. So I sit down and I develop a clue that says this is what I'm going to provide for you. I indicate the people I'm going to provide it for, and they're responsible for going and saying, okay, this makes sense, I agree to this, I'm good. We've got an agreement here. So this represents an actual agreement. This is the foundation for, in the event one of these conflicts does arise, usually it's emanating out of the fact that, hey, you know what, you're committed to do this. This is what you came on board and said you were going to do. This is what you wanted to do. And you're not quite getting there. What's going on? So this is the foundation for that, the clue. This is a pretty fundamental thing. Stepping stones are measures. Some companies, I think, call this sort of thing key performance indicators, measurements, metrics. Stepping stones are really kind of fundamental to our organization, and we have lots and lots and lots and lots of measures, within the organization. And to try to give you a little bit of a description of some examples of stepping stones or what they'd be like, generally speaking, they're not kind of like big bottom line profitability sort of measures. They're more at the activity level sort of measures. Does that make sense? Which means that a person with say in a manufacturing environment may have, I don't know, Gordy, a couple of dozen stepping stones that you're really paying attention to and responsible for. And in an ideal world, which this is something we have to make progress on, but in an ideal world, you're receiving pretty real-time feedback on those. And you're using them as a decision-making tool, as well as the reason they're called stepping stones, actually, is they're intended to provide self-directed stepping stones for improvement. So each stepping stone has a perfect result associated with it. So what is perfection? And then what is where were we last time, last year or last week or last month? Yeah, absolutely holds you accountable. Yeah. And then what's your short-term target? And those are pretty self-set. We have business units. Our company is organized into a pretty broad set of micro business units that are a lot more micro than the typical organization might classify business units. The idea here is that you're creating groups who have somewhat of a shared mission, a shared purpose, and it's kind of an accountability tool. Each business unit within the enterprise has its own P&L. So folks within Morningstar are pretty savvy, generally speaking, as to the fundamentals of financial performance and how their actions, to a large degree, are affecting financial performance, at least of their business unit. And we have this peer reviews. At the end of every year, we have a pretty intense peer review process where, going back to the personal responsibility of organizing, coordinating your actions, right? One of the things we'll talk about in a second is self-management kind of implies that it's me. I'm all by myself. I'm totally autonomous, and I'm responsible for me, and nobody else can say anything. Well, that's not really the thing. And so one of the ideas here is to disabuse people of the notion that you're kind of an island unto yourself. In fact, you're a person that's responsible for self-managing yourself and then your relationships with other people around you. And so part of being a manager is providing feedback to the people around you, the people that are working with you, that are working for you. And so every person in the enterprise is responsible for providing feedback in a very formal environment at the end of every year to all of their Clue colleagues, all the people that they're connected with in the organization. Our compensation process kind of flows out of that. I don't want to get too in-depth in compensation. I think that's something we might discuss a little bit more later, but currently iteration of our compensation process is to a large degree driven by folks at the local level. You're responsible for, each colleague generates a letter at the end of the year outlining the reasons why they believe there's additional compensation warranted, if there is. They go through their peer reviews, and then they self-elect a committee at their location to kind of go through and gut check the representations that were made in that letter. So my letter said that I saved the world this year, Gordy, as one of the guys in the compensation committee, is going to say, wait a second, Paul, we looked at your letter here and you did not save the world this year. In fact, you barely showed up. So maybe you should alter this a little bit, right?